Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Catherine Etmanski, and I am the director of the School of Leadership Studies at Royal Roads University. I'm absolutely delighted to see so many of you with us here today, and even more pleased that we have the opportunity to really highlight the voices of 3 of our current students in the Masters of Arts of Leadership. So in a moment, I'll introduce them to you, but for now, let me just say that we've got Simon Chu, Jason Andrew, and Michael Rosen on the line with us, along with a whole team of people, including Selena Kunar, Nao Fujiwara, and Rhonda and Jen and a number of others from our team are also here helping in the background. So as with much of what we do at Royal Roads University is a team effort, and so I acknowledge and thank my colleagues who are all here to support our efforts today. For those of you who are a little bit newer to the Zoom platform, I know by this time, by this time in the pandemic, many people have learned how to use Zoom, had never used Zoom before. But just in case this is new for you, no problem at all. I just wanted to let you know that for those of you who are a little bit newer, as you come in, you'll see that you are automatically muted. So we ask you to just keep your microphone off for the time being while we're chatting and introducing and while Simon, Michael, and Jason are saying their words. And then a little bit later on in the session, we'll have the opportunity to ask questions, for you to ask questions. And you can do that either in the chat room. So if you look toward the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat icon. And you're welcome to ask questions in there anytime. So as I said, we've got a whole team of people here, and everyone, especially Rhonda, will be helping to make sure that all of the correct information about the actual program is being responded to in the chat. And then the 3 students will be able to answer your questions live a little bit toward the end. And then likewise, as you're engaging, if you wanted to add a reaction, you can either put a thumbs up or an applause. Why don't we practice that now? You can try with the reactions button at the bottom. Yes, I see some of you starting to do that. And if you wanted to change the skin tone of the thumbs up button, there is also an option to do that as well under your settings feature. So we've got the chat, we've got the reaction setting. We're asking you to kindly keep yourself muted. And if you would like to turn your video on, you're most welcome to do so, though it's absolutely not a requirement. I do want to let you know that we are recording this session. And so anything that you say, or if you turn your video on, that will become part of the recording. And the recording will be shared out with everyone who registered in this session today. So just one last little detail here. If you click on the participants icon toward the bottom of your screen, you'll see that it lists everyone who is in the session, and it gives you the option to raise your hand. So toward the end, when we come to that point where we are asking for your questions or your engagement in the conversation, if you would like to speak, we just ask you to raise your hand. It helps us to keep the conversation organized, because sometimes if multiple people have their microphones on at the same time, it actually, we kind of cancel each other out. So we'll just try to keep it a bit organized by asking you to raise your hand. And I think that's about it for covering the tech details. It looks like a few more have joined. So for those of you who are just joining, again, my name is Catherine Etmanski, and I have the sincere honor and pleasure of being the director of the School of Leadership Studies. Our circle of elders, the Heron people, have given us some guidance at Royal Roads University in how we acknowledge the lands on which Royal Roads University rests. And so at this point, now that people are getting settled and have an understanding of the technology, now I'd like us to really turn our attention in earnest to the experience of being at Royal Roads. And part of this is acknowledging that the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Kusapsum, also known as Esquimalt, and the Lekwungen or Songhees ancestors and families who have lived here and continue to live here. They've been here for thousands of years and are still thriving on this land and still guiding us to this day. So this land has been part of the fabric of the life of Indigenous communities long before Hatley Castle was built, and it will be long into the future. For those of you not familiar with Hatley Castle, it's part of Royal Roads University, and as mentioned here, long before it was a university, it has traditionally been a gathering place, a place of coming together for learning for time immemorial. So it is with a sense of deep gratitude that we now learn and work here, where the past, present, and future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff come together. Haichkasiyam. So a brief overview of where we're going today. For those of you who are new to the session, it's helpful to know, I'm doing a little bit of welcoming and some introductions will follow. And we'll give you a very brief highlight of our leadership programs, the Masters of Arts in Leadership in particular. And then we'll really turn our attention to the three special guests, current speakers, both in the first year and in the second year of the program. So they'll be able to tell you a little bit about their experiences. And as I said, then we'll open it up for questions and conversation and give you a few resources at the end. And that should wrap up our session, hopefully by around 1 o'clock, maybe a couple minutes afterwards. This is, of course, Pacific time. So no matter where you're chiming in from today, you're most welcome. And if you have to log off early for whatever reason, just know that this is being recorded, so we'll send it out to you afterwards. Very briefly, I'll share with you that our Masters of Arts of Leadership is a 24 months, so a 2-year program, and it's worth 36 academic credits. So there are 2 mandatory, what we call residencies, although in this era of the pandemic, the term doesn't quite do justice to the actual experience. Typically, people would come to campus during those times, but the purpose today of today's webinar is really to share with you what it was like to have to do this residency in an online format, this intensive learning online. So we have 3 program offerings within this program. Twice a year, we offer the multi-sectoral program. And then we also have the health specialization, which is starting up very soon. And in the spring, we offer the executive leadership specialization. So toward the end of the webinar, we'll be sharing the links that have all the information about the start dates and the program schedule and the courses and that. And if you have any questions in the meantime, as I said, please feel free to use the chat feature. You can ask your questions there, and Rhonda or Selena or anyone else on the call might be willing to jump in and respond. So we also have a graduate diploma and a graduate certificate, and both of these are embedded right in the Masters of Leadership program. So as Jason and Simon and Michael will share with you, probably they had some diploma or certificate students registered along with them. So the graduate certificate is essentially the first 3 courses of the Masters of Leadership program. And the graduate diploma is the first 3 courses of the MA Leadership, and then another 3 courses of your choosing. So if you've already got a graduate certificate from elsewhere across campus, for example, we can look at combining those 2 certificates to create a diploma. So I can tell you a little bit more about that toward the end, but I don't want to take too much time, because what you're really here for, I think, is to learn from the students themselves. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Simon Chu. Let me tell you just a little bit about Simon, because people in the multi-sectoral program really come from all different backgrounds. So let me tell you a bit about Simon's background. So Simon is in the 2nd year of his leadership program. And as he'll share with you, this means that his first year, he actually did have that in-person experience. And then sadly, he didn't get to see all of his friends from his cohort the 2nd year. And I really do want to acknowledge the range of emotions that people felt. I mean, of course, we all want to be safe. Of course, we all understand that we're in a pandemic and we all need to change our behavior in some way. But there is a sense of sadness because of the deep relationships that you form in that first year, isn't there, Simon? You can say more about it from your perspective in a moment. So he is a frontline customer service person turned marketer who is passionate about how storytelling and targeted messaging can improve access to higher education for all. Last year, Simon had and here's where his sense of humor comes in, a non-LED light bulb moment and applied to join the Masters of Leadership program. And he says this was a decision that truly changed his life. As an executive assistant to the Office of External Affairs at Kwantlen Polytechnic University, by the way, my alma mater, I attended Kwantlen many, many years ago, which is located in Metro Vancouver, Simon project manages outbound marketing initiatives that help increase brand awareness and institutional reputation, which aims to attract and retain not only the best and brightest minds, but also a diverse population to Kwantlen. When he isn't working, you'll find Simon reading on the beach, riding his road bike seaside, and learning Mandarin Chinese on Duolingo. Simon, I'm going to stop sharing this PowerPoint so that we can see your face front and center. And I see Selena is applauding. We'll just give you a virtual applause by using the reactions, and over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Everyone's okay? A little nod there. Perfect. Well, thank you for that introduction and being a part of this session. It's cool to be in this seat and actually I get to kick this off. I would just start that congratulations for getting this far, all of you. It's weird to say that, but clearly you're motivated and high-achieving individuals that you would want to come to a webinar and to learn more about this firsthand. I want to start off by saying that I don't work for Royal Roads. I'm not a salesperson. I hope that it doesn't come across too salesy here with what we're going to get into, and really just want to be able to share our authentic experiences in this crazy, weird time. You know, to jump into a graduate studies and master's program is a lot to take on, let alone in a pandemic. So we've come out on the other end okay, and some of us are, you know, the first year, I'm in my second year almost on this program, and feeling really confident. And I don't think I would have been able to say that in the seat that you are all in right now. So yeah, I feel like that's really just where I'm coming from. I want to say that I'm coming from Burnaby, BC, and the traditional lands out this way are Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and Coquitlam peoples. I'm sorry, I meant to start with that as well. Some scattered notes here, so I apologize for that. But anyway, I see some familiar faces on here that I do know, so thanks for your support. And by extension, you know, long after this session as well, I'd be happy to connect with you if you have any questions, and we can speak candidly offline as well. Selena, I hope that's okay. I'd be happy to move on to Jason, just you don't hear my voice so much, and then you can jump back to me. So if that's okay in terms of flow. But thank you, and nice to meet you, and I'll get into all your questions very soon. Over to you, Jason.
Thank you so much, Simon. So Jason, why don't I give you a brief introduction here so that everyone understands where you're coming from as well. So Jason is a first-year MA leadership student who has worked for the Ktunaxa Nation Council in the education and employment sector for 14 years. So Jason is currently the manager of contracts and client services who oversees federal and provincial employment and training contracts that provide services to Indigenous, status, and non-status individuals. Jason is a Ktunaxa Nation member and also an elected councillor in his home community. Jason, over to you.
Awesome, thank you. Can everyone hear me? Awesome.
Yes, indeed.
All right, so Gisu Kukit, Hugaklik Jason Andrew, Hunini Ktunaxa, Hugaki Akam, Husukuskukni Kinwakith, and I'm zooming in from Ktunaxa territory. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Andrew. I'm Ktunaxa from the community of Akam, and I'm so happy that you could all be here today. I didn't have the opportunity to participate in a webinar, while learning about the Master of the Arts and Leadership program. I was, however, my colleague, my director for the Ktunaxa Nation Council, she just completed her thesis in the same program. So I've got to watch her learn for the last 2 years, and she's given me insight into the program. So within the Ktunaxa Nation Council, they are committed to lifelong learning, and through that, I was recommended to take the Master's of Arts in Leadership program. So I just started in April. Some of the highlights for me, are we going into highlights right now, or?
Go for it.
Okay,
Whatever
so yeah.
you like. Yeah, whatever you like, Jason.
So I was apprehensive at first about starting the master's program because it was online. For me, I need structure in my learning. So I was elated or happy to see that within the master's program, there's a defined schedule, structure, regular meetings, and then they provide resources for your learning. So if you've been at a school for a while and you need help with your academic writing, there's stuff in place that can assist you with that. Now that I'm into the thick of things, I highly recommend it, and don't be afraid of starting a program if you've been at a school for a long time, because there's so many supports from Royal Roads itself and then within your learning community. Another highlight for me was, as an Indigenous person, learning about leadership, understanding that some of the leadership skills that I've learned about have been instilled in me from my Tanaka culture, and just it was like an aha moment, just understanding that I'm connected so much to my culture. So that was really powerful and meaningful for me. Another great experience for me was creating learning relationships within our advisory group, as well as within other advisory groups in the cohort. And I think I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll pass it over to Michael.
Thanks, Jason. Jason's actually in my cohort, so it's nice to see him in this. And yeah, I just want to say that that I'm really thrilled to be here today, and looking forward to some of the questions that some of you potential students may have. So just kind of a brief background. And I realize, sorry, Catherine, I might have skipped the intro. We can do that after. It's so important.
No problem.
I've been yeah. I'd been looking, probably like you, weighing various programs. Now, I'll speak to this from the perspective of a master's student. I know some of you may be interested in some of the other program offerings. For me, I had done some certificate work in the past, some graduate certificate work, and doing a master's is something that I'd considered for a number of years. I was looking for, initially looking at MBA and Masters of Management programs, and ultimately leaning towards, I found myself leaning towards programs that were a little less quant and more to do with leadership and leading modern teams. So that led me to look more towards leadership studies. So it's definitely not an MBA. So, you know, I would, that might be good news or bad news or a mix, I'm not sure, but it ended up being what attracted me to the program. Also the fact that I was looking for a mix of kind of an in-person experience from a real school with the flexibility that online learning provides. So I work full-time, so I definitely didn't want to have to put my work on hold or anything like that. So having the flexibility in this program has been great, and was one of the main reasons that I picked it. The residency, I imagine we'll get into more of that chat later with some of your questions, but I was very much looking forward to the residency in person. I thought kind of 2 weeks a year was a nice mix of online and in-person learning. So I was sad initially, of course, and about the kind of loss that came with not being able to study in person. But I will say that I was really impressed with the way that the online residency was conducted. It was pretty amazing to me, and I think I speak for my colleagues as well. Not to speak for my colleagues, but I think it's fair to say that others were also impressed with how smooth the experience was, and just the fact that we can build community in so many different ways, and to see that happen in an online portal was really neat in just a span of 2 weeks. So. Like Jason, obviously we're in the same cohort. I'm new to my studies here. It's only been a few months, but I'm certainly enjoying it so far, and I think I made the right choice, all considered. And maybe I'll throw it back over to you, Catherine.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. And for those of you who are curious about Michael's background, why don't I, just for formality's sake, give a post-speech introduction of Michael here. And let me just say that it's important to do this because people are often curious, Selena and I will run these webinars from time to time, and people say, well, my background is this. Does that qualify me? Or my background is totally different from this. So the purpose here of having three different people working in different sectors is to really assure you that we understand leadership is a multi-sectoral practice. Leadership is required in every single sector and every single organization. And so Michael, unlike the other two speakers before him, Simon and Jason, Michael, as he said, is a first-year student who is the manager of procurement process and systems at Coast Capital Savings Federal Credit Union in Surrey, BC. Michael specializes in the areas of project management and process improvement. He has driven a number of medium to large scale projects in the financial services industry, having also worked for Industrial Alliance in Vancouver and Fidelity Investments in Toronto. So thank you so much, Michael, for sharing your experiences. And perhaps at this point, shall I pass it back to you, Simon? Did you want to say a few more words? Thank you for graciously turning it over to the first year students. Go ahead.
Thanks, Catherine. Thank you so much. And yes, we'll get into the meat of this now. And Jason and Michael, of course, I'll pass to you accordingly with some of the questions that we were asked previously, if that's okay. I'll share a little bit more about where and how I landed with this master's program, as you guys are all in your exploratory phase right now. For me, I will share with you that I previously took a graduate studies program elsewhere at a different school, and it was I work in post-secondary myself, and I'll tell you that it was a master's in education. So I got in and I did relatively well, and halfway through that program at that other school, it was so hard, but it wasn't for me. It was something that was a difficult decision to actually leave that, to a point where I felt like, oh my God, maybe I made the wrong choice, or I'm dumb, or I just couldn't get through that program. What happened? It just didn't work. I'm sharing this for a reason here, because I found Royal Roads, and I think my path here was, and I encourage you all to do this as well, is to really speak to your network and your peers and your colleagues and those that obviously that you respect, as I did, and quite quickly I found this program, Selena and Catherine, to be honest. It was really just through that networking, to be very honest, and that really gave me some confidence to restart graduate studies for me, and I heard nothing but great things. And not that the marketing or I didn't go to a webinar like this myself, but I found that in my journey of finding out what I wanted and what fit best was to rely on those, and of course these sessions as well. Again, I could speak to that in more detail, but I want to share with you that because it's important to really find out, leadership, like what's leadership, what's Mikey spoke about an MBA, and I very much relate to that too. That was part of my research and my journey of, okay, where am I going to throw my money at, and what's good for my time. But anyway, that's just general grad studies exploratory mode. So I want to offer you that I got in so far and got into something else and it didn't work out, and that's okay. I've come to learn that was a real life lesson for me, and it wasn't wasted time, but it was something that I really learned, and coming in with fresh eyes to this program was so valuable. I love this program. I know it's really odd because, man, like, we have morphed into this pandemic and we haven't had the chance to, as this residency, as my colleagues had recommended, that the residency portion, so speaking to that, was this capstone, this really, really like magical, cool experience that you get, that Royal Roads does offer. It's true. The first residency for me in person, going to that X-Men castle. X-Men was filmed there, by the way. That was kind of like a draw for me. It was awesome. It was so cool. And I loved it. And the people that we connected with, there was, you know, connecting online, then meeting them in person. It's very corny to say, but we became this really tight group, and we still are. And it isn't to say that Mike and Jason, like, you don't have that online, but I had that luxury of that. It was so cool. And to think that, to not have that going into my second residency, if you can imagine you guys in that seat and getting that far along, I felt that, okay, I'm paying the same amount of tuition. Am I going to get that same experience? Like, what am I gambling on what was promised before? I'm not going to get that authentic experience. I will tell you that in chaotic times, it breeds the ground for innovation. You know, it ended up being a much more richer experience for it. So I hope, Jason and Michael, that would obviously move on for you at the time that second residency comes. But all to say that it was fantastic, and we all learned together, and we all made it work. Our community actually became a lot tighter for it. I myself, wrap up here a little bit for you guys, is hey, I have my own journey. My timelines are, I want to get this master's, you know, I want to progress further, and you know, from a career perspective. So for me, I didn't think that the timelines were, I was gambling, or maybe like, okay, maybe I'll take a break. Some folks did feel that way given the situation and their home situation, work situation. But for me, as many of you are considering as well, you know, it was still fitting my timelines and what I wanted to achieve. Most of this program is online, as you guys know, or hope to know, and the online residency was an extension of that. So it was very smooth, and the quality of that, of the education, and where I'm going, where I'm headed to, hopefully convocating in the summer, I feel great, and it hasn't been a gamble. I'm so glad that I'm a part of this community, and hopefully be able to share a little bit more of that with you. So, okay, I'm hearing myself a lot. I'm going to pass it over to Jason, and feel free to jump in there.
I'll just speak to a little bit more about the online residency. At the beginning, I was disappointed that we weren't all going to be able to meet in person in Victoria, but due to what was happening with COVID, I understood it, and I come from an Indigenous community as well, so I also didn't want to put my community at risk. I think at first I was apprehensive about creating relationships with my advisory group, but I think Royal Roads created the atmosphere and the ability for us to create those relationships. Every day we had check-ins, like to talk about anything, if it was school or if you're going through a rough time, stuff like that. So we got to know each other on a personal level as well. And I think that Royal Roads did an excellent job providing the resources, making it interactive, having breakout groups between all advisory groups, and then just making sure everyone got time away from the screen, and then using the resources and the methods of instruction to keep everyone interested. I think it was awesome. And for me, it was just as meaningful, even though I haven't been there in person. I thought it was a great experience for myself. I'll pass it over to Michael now.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I'd echo a lot of what my colleague shared. For me, so one thing, just kind of from a contextual perspective, when Jason and I started our residency, it was right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, like just kind of as people were starting to work from home full time, or certainly, you know, within a month or a month and a half of anyway. So the time that we started, there was a lot of uncertainty, and you know, people were understandably a little more on edge, and probably, you know, a little bit afraid of what it meant, and you know, what the future was going to bring. Not that the situation is, you know, not that we're out of the woods now or anything, of course. I get the sense that, you know, things are, we're kind of settling into this working from home reality. So I know that I've certainly begun to feel more comfortable with this. Both my professional working environment, working from home now, and continuing my studies online. So, you know, while I echo Jason, and you know, while I was certainly you know, sad about not being able to study in person during my residency, that, you know, obviously understood the reasons for it, and I was impressed with how smooth it was conducted online. The other nice piece was that So I live alone, right? So my life's probably a little bit more flexible for that reason. But what was nice is that between calls, I was able to get a little bit of work in. I was able to, sneak out for a little bit of walk, a walk here and there. While I was kind of looking forward to the idea of living on a campus again and kind of reminding myself what it was like to be an undergraduate student, I didn't hate the fact that I had a bit more personal time than being on campus full time for those 2 weeks might have provided. So, in hindsight, maybe it did give me a little bit more of a balance. So while I didn't necessarily get to share meals in person with my residency colleagues, there were people that were organizing calls outside. There's group work where you're going to be collaborating. There were morning sessions where we took a moment to do land acknowledgement and say some hopes and wishes for the day. So it was all really smooth and worked well. Like even given the fact that we're all kind of new to working with Zoom at that time. So that was good. I didn't feel that it disrupted the learning at all or the community growth, which I thought was kind of neat. So we definitely managed to build some strong relationships and look forward to hopefully next year being able to see my cohort colleagues in person. If not, maybe the year after that, but we'll get there. So yeah. So if you have any hesitance, about the online component versus the in-person component, I think it worked just fine. Jason already mentioned that there is a lot of support in this program. My undergrad was at a pretty academically rigorous school, and it was kind of in the early 2000s. It wouldn't be what I would describe a supporting program. RRU is so far in my experience is the opposite of that. It's not to say that my first experience didn't have student services and things like that available. It was just a lot harder to find out what those things were and to look for them and to access them and to use them. And you definitely felt like you're on your own. So I would say, despite the fact that this program is online, you don't feel alone. As Jason also said, there is structure, and you're pretty clear week to week what the work looks like. So yeah, so I'll leave it at that and let some of these questions come through.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Simon and Jason and Michael, for sharing your experiences. And I want to assure everyone on this call, we had a conversation last week, and we were talking about how important it is that the three of these people share authentically. I had requested that they were honest, because I think all of you, as people who are really considering whether or not to apply at this point, or maybe some of you are applying or have already applied, and you've just learned, that you're going to be in an online setting. Maybe some of you are in the health cohort coming up, for example. It's really important that you get a sense directly from people who have gone through this experience. So I really do want to thank Jason, Simon, and Michael for their candor, and for being willing to come out and share this experience with all of you. As we were preparing, we had talked about, okay, well, what are some of the surprising and meaningful elements? What did you find challenging? Any recommendations you might have for people who are preparing for an online residency during these pandemic times? There were a couple of other questions in the chat that I noticed. People were curious for the three of you about how you apply the lessons from this program to your current work. So maybe if you just take a moment to think about that, and I'll go through some of the other questions as well. So how are you actually applying what you're learning to your current work? And how are you balancing? This is, isn't this the eternal question? How are we all, but how are the three of you in particular balancing studying full-time in a master's program while also working, especially if you have the privilege to work at home as well? I mean, that's a lot. Those are a lot of hours online. So if you just think about those two questions for a moment, I'll come back to you, but I'll just respond to some of the other questions as well. Somebody had asked about the size of the cohorts. They do fluctuate, but For the most part, we are looking at between about, let's say about 35 and 50 students per cohort. And like I said, it does fluctuate from intake to intake, and we do run this program 4 times a year. As I said at the outset, we have the executive leadership specialization coming up in the spring, and the health leadership specialization that's about to launch now, and then the multi-sectoral program. So each intake is a little bit different, but that's approximately it, you know, roughly around 40 students, between 35 and 50. And then somebody was also asking about women to men, the ratio of women to men. As it turned out, the 3 students who happened to be available are all men. And so thank you to the 3 of you for coming. And it's not 100% representative. Of course, we have many women in the program as well. Perhaps the 3 of you could comment on that. I think for the most part, people, there tend to be slightly more women than men in the cohort. So maybe the 3 of you could comment on that. And of course, some trans people join as well. So it's, you know, there's a range of gender identities as part of the cohort, and lots of different kinds of diversity as part of the cohort. And then there was another question about the percentage of people that we admit in. I think that came up in one of the questions that one of you put as you were registering for this. So we don't keep the stat of how many people we decline from the program, because we have a number of different hoops to jump through. So there's the standard admissions criteria. And for people who meet the standard admissions criteria, of course, we welcome you in. We also have the flexible admissions criteria. And this means for people who do not have a 4-year undergraduate degree, we will assess your life experiences and your professional experiences. So we'll take a look at what other kinds of education, you know, some people have a 3-year degree, for example, some people have a 2-year associate's degree, or various diplomas and certificates. And so we look at your work experience, we look at your leadership experience. We do need people to have a minimum of 5 years of leadership experience, and that is described on our website, all of the different ways that we understand leadership. Of course, there's that positional leadership in an organization, but we know that leadership means many different things. And so we look at a range of different criteria. And then if we're a little bit more concerned about whether you're ready to join, or you know, sometimes people look fantastic in terms of their application, but haven't got a lot of academic writing experience, or maybe it's been a long time since you've done any academic writing. So in that case, we would ask you to take an academic writing and critical thinking course. And all of this is just to help support people's success. So it's not so much about a percentage of how many people we deny. For us, and I think as Michael, I believe it was, said, for us, it's really about, can we create conditions for people to thrive in this program? And so if it doesn't quite work with the first round, we'll try a different approach and a different approach and a different approach. So I see that Rhonda is posting a few guidelines in the chat. And Tamara is asking, is there early consideration for acceptance into the program? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, Tamara. So maybe if you just put a few more details in the chat, we'll try our best to respond to your question. And perhaps I'll just pause for a moment and ask Selena. So I had asked the 3 students about the application of lessons and balancing school and work. Were there any questions that stood out for you that you think they could attend to at this point, Selena?
Hi, everyone. Yes, reading through the questions that were submitted by our wonderful registrants, one that came up quite a bit was, are there any tips and tricks you have for someone who's going through learning, online learning in this pandemic right now? Or tips and tricks for those who are thinking of moving through the application process as well? So any guidance you can give from your seat as current MA leadership students would be wonderful.
Fantastic. So with those 3 questions, does one of you have an inclination to jump in right away? I don't need to choose which one. Does somebody? Yeah, Jason, go for it.
Okay, so some tips for anyone preparing to do online leadership. I would say like, first of all, no question is a dumb question. And I would say also, just within your advisory group, like with me and Michael's cohort, we have a WhatsApp group, and once everybody's connected on that, you can just chat back and forth instantly, and then it's really easy to get to know each other that way too. And then I would also say, make sure you install Zotero just to keep track of all your references and stuff like that. It's made my life so much easier. And then the other question, how am I using my learning in my career? I think for me, like, I wear a lot of different hats. I don't think necessarily I think about it as my career. I think the most important role I play is being a community member. So by demonstrating my leadership abilities to my community, like, let's say, like, demonstrating vulnerability to our community comes from a place where it's kind of chaotic and a lot of pain and stuff. So being able to do that and making sure other people are okay to do that and letting people know it's okay, that's probably the most important thing for me. And I think I missed the last question.
No problem, Jason. It was about balancing studies and your work.
So I think since COVID has happened, for me, what I've been doing, I've been spending an enormous amount of time outside and away from television and the internet, just going outside, bike riding or taking my dog for a walk and just thinking and just relaxing and getting to a balance, I guess, like that. So in a sense, I've appreciated that because I haven't done that in a long time. And I think it's been really balancing for me.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Simon. I can see you want to jump in.
I'm just so mindful of our time. There's so much to say and share, and tons of great questions. You know, I would say for me, I work full time, and you know, we're all busy people, and now we're deciding to take on like 2 years of school plus family plus having a normal life. It is a lot to consider. I think for me, what I found that was really helpful for me was I'm lucky, but I shared with my employer what my my wider career goals were. I was very upfront about that, to the point where it might be for you guys, but I was very surprised to actually get that they encourage that, them being a school, mind you, but I was very lucky to have the support of my organization, to know that this isn't a secret. I'm actually trying to do these studies for myself, personally and professionally. That, yeah, if you haven't already, I feel like you might benefit from just speaking to, if you're working your organization, to let them know, hey, this is where I'm hopefully headed to, and taking on these higher studies. And I'm going to need some time to work on this. And for me, what I found, and I think I remember this is with Barb. Barb was my advice. She's here somewhere. I shared with her that, coming from my former grad school, I had learned that to defeat burnout, which is a real thing, I decided to actually take a day off of work every week. I know this is like, you just have to make it work, but that's what worked for me. I decided to take my vacation and dedicate myself one full day to study. And that helps so much, because I hadn't done that previously, but I did for Royal Roads. And again, with the support of my family and my workplace, I found some balance there. And not all weeks are like that. Things are busy. Of course, you got to make it work, and with your home life, but you do have to dedicate that time. You have to find it somewhere. And if you want this program, if you want it, if you're really passionate about taking this, you have to consider that. You're going to have to find some time somewhere. And for me, it was manifest in a day off a week, some form of that. But that's what worked for me. And there might be somewhere that, okay, maybe your weekends are going to be that Monday to Friday, you're working, okay, Saturday, guys, I'm locking myself down. That's what it's going to require. There is a work-life balance at the end of this. At some point, you'll strike that. It seems like a lot. It is going to be a lot. It's 2 years, 24 months, at least for the full program. But you'll find that balance. But I would definitely say, don't make it a secret. Let your loved ones, let your workplace know that you're looking to do this, and you'll be surprised. Hey, okay, you'll get that support. It doesn't feel like it, but just check on that. So anyway, Michael, is there anything that you want to add?
You're getting a few accolades in the chat room there, Simon. This idea of taking 1 day of vacation a week, good idea. Over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Catherine. I would echo a lot of what Simon said. That was great, Simon. For me, so my work schedule is such that I can't really take the time off, on a dedicated day per se, aside from the weekend, of course, where I do have a bit more time. I said earlier, of course, I do live on my own, so I do have some inherent flexibility there, which is helpful for my particular situation. But what I would say, is it a lot? Speaking of the volume of the programming, it's definitely a commitment. I mean, there's work involved, and there were times during the residency that it felt a little overwhelming. Certainly at the beginning, when you're kind of thinking, boy, how am I going to get this done in this couple weeks? But you know what, you go through it, and then I know for me, the 2 weeks shot by, and then by the end, you're kind of looking back, and it's like, wow, did that really happen? And I got through that. It's okay. And I will say now that Jason and I are into our second round of courses, our second, officially our fourth course. But I know for me, I'm kind of starting to hit a stride in terms of how my weeks should look. So typically I'll try to get my readings done in the first half of the week, and then there's weekly there'll be some sort of writing component. So I'll reserve the second half of the week for that, and then at assignment times, it's making a little bit of extra time also then for the assignment. I will say that the schedule so far in these courses is friendly in the sense that I haven't had too many periods where there's been too many competing interests at the same time. So again, thinking back to an undergraduate degree, when I was taking 5 courses full time, and there was no care given to whether you had multiple assignments at the same time or multiple exams on the same day. RRU is a little bit different than that. So while it is work and it's dedicated, there is consideration given to the amount of reading and whether or not you have an assignment at that time. So I will say that it's manageable, but yes, it is something. And I think I kind of believe myself that for something to be meaningful, it should have an element of dedication to it. So you come this far, then you're looking at it. Obviously, you're probably familiar with doing this sort of thing in your life in terms of setting time to accomplish goals. So you're probably well positioned. When it comes to the application is also work, and as we know, applications for university programs are meant to be a little bit of a hoop to see for you to showcase yourself and to show that you're kind of capable of doing the work and showing that intention. I will say, from looking at other schools and even other professional designations, that the application process for RRU is pretty fair. While it is work, it's, to me anyway, when I was at that time, when I was looking at a few different schools, it wasn't so onerous that it turned me off of applying. So I would say just apply. Like, if you want to just throw it in there, then you have some time to think about whether or not you want to accept or not, or if you're accepted. The application process is not so bad that it'll totally turn you off. At least for me, it didn't. There was a good question that I saw about how I see myself applying the MA in my career. So I could probably read that a couple different ways. So I could read it as, how do I see myself applying the information that I'm learning? It's kind of interesting. I mean, it definitely has you reflecting on your day-to-day life. Like, I'm not sure if you come from positions of formal leadership right now, but it definitely has me kind of considering the way that I interact with my team, and being sure that I give a voice to my employees. I have a small team, and it kind of has you becoming more introspective about yourself as a leader, and kind of the needs of your team. So that's kind of neat. But it does of course take some effort for you to actively apply that learning to your daily life. So there's kind of some work that comes back to you on that. But for me, it's definitely changed the way that I look at the workplace and the way that I look at other former leaders. And then in terms of how I see myself applying it, from a career trajectory perspective, I mean, I'm not shy about the fact that I'm taking this program to hopefully open up doors for more senior leadership positions. So, in banking anyway, you see a lot of MBAs. I kind of wonder, is an MBA valuable? Not that there's no value in an MBA, but I was looking for a degree that was a little bit different and something that told a little bit of a different story and was interesting. And I know certainly in banking, it helps in formal, in more senior leadership positions to have a graduate degree. So that's honestly the main reason that I started looking for an MA. So so yeah, that's what I would say to that question. In terms of this program versus an MBA, I was looking at an MBA a little bit earlier in my career, probably 5 years ago or so. I'm at a position now in the organization that I didn't feel that an MBA would give me a big boost. So I was looking for a program that kind of tackled more of the subject matter that I see myself using. Like I work for a bank, but I'm not in accounting. There isn't really an entrepreneurial flair to what I do. So some of the value that's in an MBA program, I didn't really see applying to me. From a leadership perspective, it's certainly more of a consideration. So most MBA programs will have a degree of leadership studies as part of it. But I would say that, just because this isn't an MBA and you're not doing quant stuff, it's still very relevant to today's organizations. And it's a modern program with a modern view of organizations. And I think it will address some of the concerns you may have about team building in the 21st century. So maybe I'll just say one more thing about balance. Like I said, for me, I work from home and I don't have anyone else here with me. So, it is a bit of a balancing act, but it's doable. So, yeah. Oh, there was one more question. There's one about demographics. Catherine already addressed this. We've got a pretty mixed cohort. I know that the three of us here today, identify as male, but our cohort was definitely mixed. And honestly, it's like a really open, supportive environment, and it's nice. Like it's non-judgmental. You'll be supported. You're welcomed, and yeah, it's been nice. So it's all positives. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, and all three of you for your comments. Perhaps as we're rounding up to the hour here, I'll just take a moment to give some contact information if people would like to get in touch with us. I'll share my screen. Just give me a moment, please. And there we go. Oh, there we go. And so here we have our upcoming intakes. You can see that December 14th is the next deadline for the multi-sectoral program. And then in April, we have the deadline for the executive leadership specialization. And so make sure that you're reading the website and the various requirements, because the admissions requirements for both the executive leadership and the health specializations are slightly different from the multi-sectoral program. So just make sure that you're applying to the program that best suits your needs and experiences, and also that you're attending to the specific details in the application process. Here's a little bit of information about financial aid. And of course, this is all available on our website, and you can contact Rhonda, who's been on the chat answering your questions, and she'll happily give you more information about this as well. And finally here, enrollment advisors. So this is a general email, but eventually the messages do reach, whether it's Rhonda or Now for international or myself. Sometimes people have questions directly about the program, so it'll either come to me as the school director or specifically to the program heads. And we just hope that you stay in touch. We want you to contact us, stay in touch, keep up to date with the program. If Rhonda can't answer your question, then like I said, she'll put you in touch with somebody else, or Now, or whoever the right person to answer your question is. We'll be willing to make some time to speak with you. And I also want to put a little plug in here for our school blog. We have posts going up on a regular basis. Sometimes they feature students, sometimes they feature alumni, sometimes they feature some of our faculty who teach in the program. So again, a range of different topics, something for everyone there, and we're posting on a regular basis. So perhaps at this point, I'll just say, if anyone would like to make any final comments, please use the raise your hand feature and go ahead. We'll take a look to see if anyone would like to make any final comments here. Seeing none, I'll pass it to you, Simon, with your actual hand up. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much. There's so much to pack, and definitely I put my email in this chat. Hopefully that's recorded, or anyone else in the cyberspace. I'd be happy to talk to you. That's my work email. I would say that if you are thinking about applying, the thought that went through my head when I really wanted to give it a shot was, I don't know, I might be too junior, or I don't think I'm good enough for something. Don't worry. Just the process itself, whether it's going to be Royal Roads or maybe another graduate studies program, is put it on paper. That in itself is an excellent exercise for you to put it into words. Why do you want to do this thing called a master's at large? And part of this process, a little bit of a spoiler alert, is that you have to ask for 2 references. And I'll tell you that when I got those reference letters from 2 of my very close colleagues, it gave me so much confidence. And whether I got in or not, it gave me the gumption to be like, yeah, I can do this program. I can really do well in whatever it is that I want. Because I got that support, not just because it's a mental block, but just know that the process to apply for a grad studies program is in itself just a very valuable experience. Whether you get in or you don't, I think that you are already at that stage where that might be something that you're considering. So give it a shot. You have nothing to lose. I think you have to pay a little application fee, but it's well worth it. And you can do it, and you're good. Don't worry. You're fine. You're smart. You're going to be fine. So good luck. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Simon. There's actually something called grad schoolitis, this idea of being the imposter syndrome. Am I really good enough to be here? And we actually have, I'll post it in the chat in a moment, someone from our writing center has created a video about this, so I'll post that for people to watch. But Michael and Jason, any final words before we log off here? We're just 2 minutes after the hour.
Hey, I'll jump in there. Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, so I would just say, everyone, I put my work email there. So feel free to send me an email. I'm more than happy to address further questions that you have about it or about my experience. And yeah, over to you, Jason.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. I put my email address in there as well. So if anyone wants to ask me any questions or just touch base, I'm happy to do so. And thanks for coming.
Thank you. So with that, Selena, I'll just pass it over to you to say any final words. And I too would like to extend my deep gratitude to the speakers, to everyone who has joined us today, and to those of you working behind the scenes to make this happen. Wish everyone a wonderful day. Over to you, Selena.
Thank you so much, Catherine, as well as Jason, Michael, Simon, and everyone who is both with us live and registered for today's session. If you have any questions, you're welcome to hit reply on any emails you receive from me in regard to this webinar, and we'll be able to answer any questions that come up for you. If I'm not able to answer the question, Rhonda is always eager to chat with prospective students, and then Catherine in the School of Leadership as well, and of course our wonderful current students and alumni. So thank you all so much for joining us today, and you should have the recording of this session in your inboxes soon. Back to you, Catherine.
All right, everyone. I think that's a wrap. For those of you who are still on the call, why don't we, you can either use the reactions button at the bottom. Let's give a round of applause to our 3 speakers, or if you would like to unmute yourself at this point, we can actually give a vocal round of applause. You're getting lots of applause, a few hearts and love coming your way. Thanks once again. I wish everyone a wonderful day. Stay safe. Be kind to each other, and hope to see you in the program. Bye-bye.